This is the Yamaha MT07, the bike of the decade by Yami Noob. So the MT07 is a big bike. It's about 700 cc's, so it's pretty big. Especially here in the Philippines, it's a pretty big bike. In the US, they don't consider it really a big. They consider it a medium-sized or normal bike, but here it's considered a big bike.
Hello everybody, all my squids, my crossplane kings, my master of torques. Welcome to today's video. It is of course your dad, your boy, inventor of the Hayabusa Hypercube, Yami Noob. And today we're talking about the most underrated, most overrated, and the most ubiquitous motorcycle from Team Blue of the last decade, the Yamaha MT07, the master of torque, baby. The bike that turns many law-abiding motorcyclists fresh out of the MSF into squiddly hooligans with just one twist of the throttle.
It's a naked bike, by the way.
Truly the bike of the last 10 years, or has the saturated naked bike market turned the master of torque into a submissive dork? We're going to talk today about all this and more, so sit back and relax and let's talk about the Yamaha MT07.
My opinion about the MT07 is it's a very good bike. It's a well-balanced Yamaha bike.
Today's video is sponsored by Chin Mounts. I will tell you more about them later in the show. Now let's get into it. Yamaha has been making motorcycles since 1955, when it was determined by founder and president Genichi Kawakami that if you were to ever earn the respect of the estranged father, Yamaha would have to produce something that was a bit more badass than the beta pianos and reed organs that had been produced previously.
Oh,
Yamaha's
so they
history of
did
motorcycle
instruments
production is
before
as
they
long
did
as it is hazy,
motorcycles.
likely from all the two-stroke exhaust fumes. So we're going to keep the history section brief and look at a few specific bikes from Yamaha that were important stepping stones to the development of the MT07. One of the earliest predecessors of the MT07 is the Yamaha XS650. This motorcycle was produced for over 15 years, from 1969 until 1985. When it was released, it was considered to be one of the most advanced parallel twin engines ever made at the time. Made in the standard UJM style, the XS650 isn't the most exciting motorcycle in hindsight. It had 1970s braking and suspension technology and standard UJM looks, but all things considered, the XS650 made over 50 horsepower and weighed just 430 pounds, which means this bike had a higher power to weight ratio than just about every motorcycle ever built by Harley-Davidson. By the mid-1980s, two-stroke engines, a longtime favorite for Yamaha, were phasing out, and four-cylinder motorcycles with higher revving engines, aerodynamic bodywork, and improved braking and suspension components were becoming the norm. Kawasaki pioneered this archetype with the GPZ 900R Ninja, and the rest of the Big Four followed suit. Yamaha released the FZ750 in 1985 as their first attempt to make a four-stroke.
This looks a lot like, what is it? The Firebird? Honda Fireblade, like the old one. Yeah, it looks very similar.
Motorcycle that could rival their two-stroke TZ750 in power. This motorcycle would be one of the earliest foundations for Yamaha's super sport motorcycles, and yes,
it looks so classy though.
Which is a naked bike, but like Good and Evil or Hope and Despair, one cannot exist without the other. Naked motorcycles would not exist had riders not grown tired of the uncomfortable ergonomics and annoying top-end power of traditional sport bikes, and thusly a necessary inclusion.
Yeah. If you guys don't know, if you don't ride motorcycles, the sport bike ergonomics is extremely uncomfortable, and it hurts your back after riding for a while. So if you're riding a sport bike, you're hunched forward, and if you're riding a naked bike, you're more neutral in your ergonomics, your body posture, which makes it a lot more fun to ride.
By the late 90s, Yamaha developed the R1 and the R6, 1000 and 600cc super sport motorcycles respectively, and as an alternative to the R6, Yamaha had also
everybody
built
wants
the
to be a MotoGP
600 Phaser.
Ooh, the Phaser's
used
lit.
a 599cc inline 4 engine pulled from the YZF 600R Thundercat, which was the cornier predecessor to the R6. This 4-cylinder engine was tuned for more accessible mid-range power for street use, but if history has taught us anything, a 4-cylinder engine detuned for street use just means it's underwhelming. When it comes to an ideal low-end grunt, there's no denying the consequence of an engine's girthy bore and length of its stroke. Just ask your mom, she knows all about it. For example, despite the Phaser's tuning, it still only makes 45 peak foot-pounds of torque all the way up to 9,500 RPM. By comparison to modern twins, this is not really what we would consider mid-range power. In 2004, the FZ69420 phaser, or whatever its numerical denotation was superseded by the FZ6.
I really
Finally,
like the
we're in the new
phasers.
millennium, and after 4 years of edging, Yamaha is close to relieving your Team Yamaha blue balls by masterfully torquing your crankshaft to 270 degrees. But before there was the MT07, it was the FZ07, and before it was the FZ07, it was the FZ6. The FZ6 was referred to as the phaser as well. The FZ6 looks more similar to what we had now recognized as a naked motorcycle than any other bike we've previously mentioned. This bike had an upright seating position, wide handlebars instead of clip-ons, and was available either completely naked or with a half fairing. This motorcycle is aiming to be the
Nakeds
same
look
do-it-all
way
bike that
better
the SV650 was.
than
It
the
was
Sport.
comfortable for commuting and city riding, but also being lightweight and agile for sporty riding or even track days. Peak power for the FZ6 was around 98 horsepower, which also put it further up to the intermediate category and less approachable than the MT07 would be known for. Production for the FZ6 ended in 2010 when it was replaced by the larger FZ8. And then in 2014, as motorcycling was on the precipice of the hyper-naked craze, Yamaha debuted both the MT07 and MT09, though they were known as the FZ07 and FZ09 in North America until 2017. But for the sake of just keeping this all straight,
I wonder
we'll
why
just
they
refer
changed
to
the
them as
names.
the MT bikes.
So let's say you're about to roll out your turbo Hayabusa of the garage. You're getting ready to do some
You know, the MT07, I think, was the seat height was higher, I think, than the MT09.
dirt nasty pulls with all of your
I
friends
don't know
on
why
the
I said
highway.
that,
You're going to pull
but
140, 150, 160, maybe even
just felt like
186 miles per hour on your big, fat, nasty bike. However, if you don't record it, well, did it really happen?
True.
My solution to this would be to get yourself a chin mounts system for your
Do I have
helmet.
cameras?
Chin mounts make some awesome GoPro and action camera accessories, and you can check them out in the link down below at chinmounts.com/Yimmy. Get yourself 10% off of everything they've got over there. We've got an awesome setup where you can put a creator pack on your helmet and actually flip this into a vertical setting, which is going to be great for sharing all of your TikToks and your Instagram reels and all that goofy stuff all you Gen Z kids are doing out there, but I highly recommend them. Check out Chin Mounts down below at chinmounts.com/Yimmy.
What would be the
Get
purpose
yourself
of
10% off of the finest action camera accessories for your helmet.
The MT09
A
was
vertical
geared toward
moto
the
vlog?
hyper-naked market, described as a roadster motard by the product manager Shun Miyazawa. And while the MT09 could be worthy of an entire video in and of itself, let's just stick with the MT07, which was kind of like the little brother of the MT09. The MT07 struck a particular chord within the motorcycle industry. It managed to fulfill a need that hadn't been satisfied since Suzuki released the SV650 15 years prior. The MT07 was fun, it was provocative to ride, and it was incredibly affordable. The defining characteristic that set the MT07
Define
apart from
affordable.
every other naked bike when it
It's
launched
not
originally,
affordable.
and then for many years after, is its parallel twin engine with a 270-degree
It's like
cross-plane
500,000
crankshaft
pesos.
design. The 270 cross-plane crank design, while not unique to Yamaha, although they were the first motorcycle company to implement it in large-scale production, was technology distilled down from the R1 Supersport motorcycle. With this engine design, the crank pins are arranged at a 90-degree interval around the crankshaft rather than being evenly spaced like in a traditional 180-degree engine configuration, like you'd find in a conventional inline-4 engine or a sleepy parallel twin like you'd find in an Ninja 650. This creates a firing order that is uneven, with cylinders firing at uneven intervals. The
Okay.
cross-plane design helps
It's
to reduce inertial torque, which improves the engine's ability to deliver power smoothly and linearly. This results in a more predictable and responsive throttle response, especially at lower RPM ranges. This is because the uneven firing order allows for the engine to have overlapping power strokes, which reduces the vibration and allows the engine to maintain a higher degree of rotational momentum. But what is equally as important for many riders is the distinct engine characteristic that comes from this engine design. The 270-degree crank
Wait,
makes
that
this
sounds
engine
nice.
rumble and burble like a V-twin and is far more intoxicating and distinct than a conventional 180-degree parallel twin. So when the MT07 was first released in 2014, it was an entirely new motorcycle that was an amalgamation of decades of motorcycles from Yamaha. It wasn't a classic UJM with an air-cooled engine, it wasn't a race bike with handlebars and a neutered 4-cylinder engine, it was a new iteration of the naked bike. It is likely what Suzuki was afraid would happen after years of managing to sustain the SV650 without much direct competition. The MT07 was making making 75 horsepower
The naked
and
bike
50 foot-pounds of torque
is
from its 689cc
just
engine. The power comes on pretty early, and combined with the
the
lightweight at
ideal
less than 400
motorcycle.
pounds, the bike was a hoot to ride. What separates this bike from other bikes at the time or even since is its accessibility. The MT07 really nails that Goldilocks zone for both power and price. For
Yep.
many newer riders with enough years of life experience under the belt, the MT07 isn't prohibitively powerful. A 20-year-old experiencing peak levels of testosterone probably shouldn't take a loan out on an MT07 while working at the fry station at Long John Silver's, but with someone with a little bit more maturity and a steady job, the MT07 won't break the bank. When it first launched, the MT07 cost
It's pretty
just
expensive.
$7,200. The budget-friendly price necessitates some cutbacks, most notably in the suspension and braking department, but the riding experience on the MT07 has always been greater than the sum of its parts. The MT07 hasn't been the quickest to see revisions, but it has been updated over the years. I mean, the SV650 has fundamentally been the same for longer than some of you watching this video have been alive, so there's some merit to the
True.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. Unrelated, but who do you think would win in a fight?
can always
the Suzuki
update.
SV650 Gladius or the FZ6 Phaser? Man, there have been some seriously dorky looking motorcycle names over the last couple of years. But if you were to buy an MT07 brand new off the showroom floor today, you would see some notable changes to the platform. The styling's been updated to the new Dark Side of Japan cyberpunk bionicle thing Yamaha's been doing to the MT bikes for a few years.
Yep.
Love it or hate
It
it,
looks
it's at least
really
recognizable
nice.
in the world of parallel twin naked bikes start to look increasingly vanilla. The MT07 now comes with KYB suspension, which still aren't absolutely phenomenal, but the rear monoshock does have preload and rebound dampening adjustability. The 2023 model year also finally comes with the TFT display and LED lighting all around, which makes the MT feel a little bit more up to snuff compared to its competitors. ABS does come standard now, and although the MT07 doesn't come with any different power modes, it isn't really necessary on a motorcycle like this. The 689cc parallel twin engine from the MT07 has become so beloved, Yamaha has made its use across several different motorcycles on their roster, including the XSR 700, the Tenere 700, and the R7. The XSR 700 is kind of a neat
I didn't know there was
interpretation
an
of the MT07.
R7.
It's a bit more vintage-looking roadster for the neo-retro rider who wears a 3/4 helmet so they can drink kombucha at stoplights. The Tenere 700 is a cool middleweight adventure-style motorcycle that also has a pretty devout fan base.
Yeah,
And
that
the
one's
R7
available
takes the
here.
fun, punchy around-town
The
usability
Tenere.
platform of the MT07 and puts it in R-bike styling for fast boys who don't want to make 18 horsepower below 10,000 RPM on a conventional 600. The MT07 has had a long-lasting impact on the motorcycle industries beyond Yamaha's own lineup as well. This bike was arguably the first to revitalize and reinvent the naked bike after Suzuki did the similar thing in the late 90s. The MT07 set the benchmark for affordable, fun, and exciting motorcycles that almost any rider can enjoy. Since the MT07 has been a dominant force in the industry, just about every manufacturer has released a bike in an attempt to recreate the same motorcycle in the same vein. While each manufacturer
why they
already
look
had motorcycles
very
in the 650 naked bike class
similar.
one way or another,
All
many
naked bikes.
struggle to entirely sever the connection burgeoning squids had to the MT07, which is now why you see Suzuki with their GSX 8S and the Honda Hornet 750 both basically
Yep.
being MT07s. Suzuki obviously
Very similar.
has, and it maybe at this point will forever had the SV650, a motorcycle that was once goated in the sauce and is now a little long in the teeth. I feel like in 30 years we're gonna have
What
flying
the fuck is
motorcycles
that?
run on solar energy being sold
It's a
alongside
drone.
SV650s and DRZs. Kawasaki sells the Z650, which is just the Ninja 650 that's equally boring but twice as ugly, and Honda sold the CB650R, which is a great motorcycle but makes around 85 horsepower and costs close to 10 grand, which isn't as much of a fault but an indication that it is geared towards a much different segment of the market than the MT, and that is the beauty of the MT07. It is not an amazing motorcycle by all metrics, but also no other manufacturer managed to capture its audience with their existing offerings. I mean, think about how crowded this market is getting now. You have the Yamaha MT07, the Suzuki GSX 8S, the Honda Hornet 750, the Aprilia 210 660. Those are four
I didn't know Aprilias
motorcycles that
did
have
naked bikes
middle-ish
now.
weight parallel twins with 270.
I thought they just did
cranks.
sport
I mean, it's
bikes.
getting really crowded. So in the words of Caleb Brandom, the founder of Pepsi, if everyone wants to buy Coca-Cola, I am just going to make Coca-Cola and put a Pepsi logo on it. So that's kind of what Honda and Suzuki did. Honda built the CB750 Hornet, which not only exploits the legacies of two of their most famous motorcycles, but also takes advantage of the MT07 archetype. It has a 755cc parallel twin engine with a 270-degree crank, making about 90 horsepower and 55 foot-pounds of torque. Does this push it outside of the realm where the MT exists, where beginner riders of a certain gumption and fortitude can learn to ride on it? Potentially, but it is more feature-packed and iteration of the middleweight naked bike formula compared to the MT07. It's rumored it's going to cost around $8,000 in North America, which would definitely give Yamaha a run for their money. And after satisfying the affordable, user-friendly naked bike market for a quarter of the century with the SV650, Suzuki decided to hop on the 270-degree parallel twin train with the GSX 8S. This bike uses a 776cc parallel twin, making around 82 horsepower.
776.
Suzuki, much like Honda, is trying to provide more value than the MT07. The GSX 8S has a bi-directional quickshifter, KYB suspension, Nissan brakes, and a TFT dash for 3 ride modes and adjustable traction
that's
control.
super
The
modern.
whole package from Suzuki has an MSRP of $8,849. I'm kind of just waiting at this point to see if Kawasaki is going to make a Z700 and just put a parallel twin with a 270-degree crank at that point, and then we'll
Probably.
have all big four manufacturers making
so,
this new age
so they,
UJM
they basically have the same bikes at that point because
parallel
the
twin
same
thing.
engine.
But the MT07 really started that whole trend, and it took Honda and Suzuki nearly 10 years to catch up. Will these bikes from Suzuki and Honda finally dethrone the MT07 as the most fun you can have for around
No.
$8,000? Well, I guess time will tell, but there's no denying the prowess of the MT07 and the clear
Because
influence
Yamaha will
it's had
always
on the
be
direction of the
releasing new
motorcycle market.
MT07s.
But what do you think? Is the MT07 as important as many believe it to be, or is it just an overrated squid steed with more clout and capability? Be sure to subscribe if you like deep dive videos like
I think
this.
it's a
You never
good
know what bike
addition.
we'll look at next. Spoiler alert, it's the Turbo Hayabusa. See you later. Fact. The Dancing Plague of 1518 was a case of dancing mania that occurred in Strasbourg, Alsace, in the Holy Roman Empire from July 1518 to September 1518. Somewhere between 500 and
What is a
400 people
dancing
took to
mania?
dancing against their will for weeks on end. Goodbye.
They danced against their will for weeks on end. Oh, against their will.
Keep watching
Okay. Dude, I really like motorcycles. You know, watching this made me want to sell my motorcycle and buy a new one. I'm thinking about buying a motorcycle that's smaller than my motorcycle, but still expressway legal. So I'm thinking about what I have right now is a Honda Rebel 500 2019 matte black. This is what I have right now. This exact thing. That's my baby. And I want to sell it so I can buy a Royal Enfield Classic 500. This one. Yeah. It's more classic. It's a lot smaller. So yeah, it's a lot slower as well, and definitely lacks a lot of modern stuff. Like I'm not sure if it's a fuel injected engine now. I'm not sure if Royal Enfield updated